There is maybe no better marriage of art forms to me personally than the visual, written, and musical marriage that is film. Film and TV have the unique chance to transport the viewer to other worlds, to stir empathy for life experiences completely outside of our understanding, and to cause us to take an internal look at our own lives in a new light. Now, I'm not some philosopher or even filmmaker myself. Although I did go to college with the dream of becoming an actor-director for film and TV, I've never really done much of it. I'm just another guy on the internet who has a lot rummaging around in his mind about the movies, books, games, and music that he listens to. There's an inherent, almost undeterminable quality of movies that's hard to quantify for me sometimes. Why do movies like Inception work so well with a story that's kind of really thin, while movies like Reminiscence seem to work, but in the end fall really flat? In my personal experience, it's how well the filmmakers marry all the different art forms of the film together into a cohesive whole. Unlike a painting, music album, or book, film combines so many art forms into one piece of an artistic expression. Not only do the individual parts have to stand on their own, but they have to come together to make a cohesive whole. And that's the difference between a masterpiece and just another entertainment product. It's how those art forms complement and uplift each other. So I wanted to give you an overview of the 3 different art forms and some examples of movies that I think do each individually really, really well. So let's buzz on into the first one.
You like jazz?
Personally, a film score has always been weighted slightly higher than the other art forms in terms of how much impact it has on my enjoyment of the film. I grew up as a kid listening to movie soundtracks probably more than any other type of music. I looped John Williams' scores on end, and the deluxe edition of the Dark Knight soundtrack, that probably would have topped my Spotify Wrapped every year for about half a decade if I had Spotify back in the day. A good soundtrack is more than just an iconic melody, however. In any great action movie score, there's that one moment where the soundtrack elevates the tension beyond just plot or visual spectacle to an experience that gets your heart racing. Or the romantic drama that subtly pulls on your heartstrings with warm tones and soft piano melodies. A good score can make or break a film's final feel. One of the greatest examples of how one art form can uplift another is Hans Zimmer's masterwork of a score for Interstellar. Let me show you what I mean. Interstellar has been reviewed and lauded to death, honestly, since it came out in 2014. For me personally, however, what has cemented the film into its iconic status is the score that is so consistently powerful from beginning until the very end. It's impossible to watch Interstellar and leave not feeling the impact of those organ swells. Zimmer started a whole trend of movie trailers blasting horns with his Inception soundtrack, but then he took it to a brand new level with Interstellar. Without Zimmer's work, Interstellar wouldn't be cemented as the masterpiece that it is. From the album, the track No Time for Caution has over 80 million plays on music streaming platforms because it takes center stage at the most tense part of the entire film. If we examine what makes this moment so great, a lot of praise can be given to the pacing and presentation of what could otherwise just be a simple sequence. After all, it's just space station docking. However, if you listen to the track in this particular moment, you can hear a constant rise. It keeps going up and up and up and up, building the tension from the first moment that it comes in. It feels like it never stops climbing, continually building through the moment until the final chord from the organ swells in to release the tension. Without this specific score, the scene probably wouldn't work. For an experiment, I tried swapping out soundtracks to see if another score from another film's iconic moment could slot in. So here's Interstellar's docking scene with the score of The Avengers, specifically the track Assemble.
Cooper, there's no point in using our fuel to chase...
Analyze the endurance of spin.
Cooper, what are you doing?
Doc.
Endurance rotation is 67, 68 RPM.
Okay, get ready to match our spin with the retro thrusters.
It's not possible.
No, it's necessary.
Endurance is hitting stratosphere.
As you can see, swapping out the scores in this particular instance makes a moment that's filled with weight, tension, and gravitas, and makes it feel goofy and stilted. That's not to say that Alvin Silvestri's work on the Avengers is bad. It's actually really iconic and has spurred its own moments and is memorable in its own right. But it doesn't fit the whole of Interstellar. There are so many more moments that I could pick out where music takes a single moment and has cemented it deep in my memory. The test flight sequence from How to Train Your Dragon. The drawing in sand moment from How to Train Your Dragon. The romantic flight from How to Train Your Dragon. Basically just anything from How to Train Your Dragon, honestly, because it's one of the best movie scores of all time, and no, I'm not bitter that it didn't win the Oscar, because it deserved it far more than freaking Social Network, because absolutely no one remembers the melody from that movie, and it also doesn't have its own theme park land. Fight me.
I hate them.
Speaking of movies with theme park lands, another moment is the first time Grant and Ellie see dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. Even beyond just the memorable themes to powerful, driven moments like this music moment from the second act climax of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. Hopefully, you see my reasoning at this point. Each of these moments in their respective films works because the music so perfectly complements the rest of the artistic whole, which, by the way...
Oh, would you look at that?
Would you look at that?
Oh, would you look at that?
Movies are obviously a visual art form, so let me explain a little further what I mean here. When a cinematographer approaches filming days, there's far more work that has already gone into setting up the shot and making sure that visually, this shot will align in continuity and look like it belongs in the same movie. From set design to lighting to the camera and lens itself, each of these decisions impacts the visual identity of the film. It can be hard to quantify sometimes why some films leave a distinct impression on the viewer while others do not, but I think it can be best described by showing you specifically what I'm talking about. In my personal opinion, Roger Deakins is the greatest cinematographer working in Hollywood today. He is responsible for such films as Sicario, 1917, No Country for Old Men, and maybe the most beautiful film I have ever seen in my entire life, Blade Runner 2049. The artistry on display in this film is absolutely stunning and visually spectacular. Every frame, honestly, is a work of art, and you could frame it on your wall. In context, it all fits with the look and feel of the world of Blade Runner, but taken out of context, the colors are completely unnatural and strange. It creates this almost otherworldly and strange atmosphere that isn't anything we would typically view in our day-to-day lives. There are movies that stick in the cultural zeitgeist often simply because of their visuals. I doubt Into the Spider-Verse would have had the cultural impact it had if it hadn't literally redefined what animated movies could look like at the time. Now, it also helps that it had a banging soundtrack and a moving story to boot, but seriously, man, look at the freaking frames. Art. There is literally not another way to describe that movie. Visuals can even completely change how a film feels by changing the color of it. Now, I won't get too deep into color grading here, despite how nerdy I feel about it, but I'll give you a brief explanation about what color grading is. When a movie is first shot, it in no way looks like it does when you see it in the theater. Depending on the cameras used and the desires of the cinematographers and editors, the initial file format is often called log footage. This essentially means that when you're filming, you're capturing as high of a range of colors and light as possible, so you have plenty of options later when editing. So color grading is then the part where they take that raw footage and they edit it to add extra color and contrast and saturation, and is often what takes the footage from looking bland to striking and visually brilliant. One example of horrible color grading is the Wicked movies, and it irritates me so much that these movies are so ugly because the production design is incredibly vivid and colorful, but for some weird reason, the final footage looks more washed out than my jeans that I've had for 6 years. Compare the look of Wicked to Dune. Washed out grays versus deep, saturated, oranges. You can feel the heat in the sand of Dune, while with Wicked, I feel absolutely none of the whimsy and magic that supposedly permeates its world. Sometimes you can even experience your favorite films in new ways when a different color grade is offered on the physical release. One of my all-time favorite movies is Logan from 2017. I could watch that movie anytime, anywhere, and in pretty much any mood and love it. In the physical media release run, buying certain versions would include a special extra disc containing Logan Noir, a completely black and white recolor of the original film. Logan is already bleak and dreary with its contemplations on death and loss, but Logan Noir completely emphasizes this dreariness by draining what little color remained from its world. Much like how Logan views this world he lives in, there's very little beauty to be seen in the stark black and white frames of Logan Noir. I think it's such a brilliant creative decision, and while I prefer the original theatrical release, Noir definitely adds to the film in a great way. One film that I have an almost irrational love for because of how perfectly it masters these first two art forms is Tron Legacy. One of, if not the, best soundtracks of all time, combined with an utterly exhilarating visual spectacle, combined to create one of my favorite sci-fi movies. Daft Punk's score is a masterpiece, and the design of the world of Tron is still iconic to this day. So why is my love for the movie irrational if both of these elements are so good? Because while passable, I'd be lying if I said it nailed the third and final art form that makes a good film, that being...
They're eating her! And then they're going to eat me! Oh my God!
She's supposed to have an inhibitor.
What kind of stupid finale is this?
Writing is the final piece where seemingly great movies go to die. You can have all the visual and musical excellence in the world, but if your writing sucks, you'll be remembered for that more than anything else. The written story has been a thing long since before the idea of making movies was even considered. There's this really popular medium called books that I've heard leans on writing pretty heavily. Anyway, I digress. A good film lives or dies on its writing because in the end, the writing is the reason for the film to exist in the first place. I'm not just referring to the script either. There are many silent movies or movies with little to no dialogue that still manage to tell a story that was written down beforehand. Even this video was written down and thought through. So when I refer to writing as an art form, I'm not just talking about the script, but about the ability to tell a story. Some movies that do this really, really well are often indie movies. These commonly have exceedingly strong writing and unique stories to tell because they rarely have the budget to make their visuals insane or to hire the most sought-after composer for their soundtracks. Take All of Us Strangers, for example. Visually, it has some pretty shots, but there's nothing to write home about. I actually can't remember anything about the soundtrack off the top of my head, but the honesty and vividness in which this film portrays love, grief, and loss struck me so deep to my core that I still remember it for that years later. Now, the weird part about blockbuster movies is that writing and story is often where the shortcuts are taken first. Now, this is done typically to try to appease the widest variety of viewers and get the most earning potential. But I think that's really sad because there are so many potentially great movies that are absolutely handicapped by predictable plots and uninteresting writing. For instance, the worst Star Wars movie of all time, Episode 8. Now, before you come at me with the pitchforks, Episode 8 has the potential to be one of the best movies in the entire franchise, with several iconic visual moments like the Salt Planet battle and the hyperspace ship moment, combined with another incredible score from John Williams. So it gets 2 out of the 3 really right. However, the script is by far the most asinine piece of trash I have ever witnessed in a major motion picture. It actually makes me angry how stupid the story to this movie is.
I hate them!
There are so many points I could make about how bad the story is, but I'll focus on just 3. First, the entire plotline for Rose and Finn is completely pointless, and you could remove both characters from the movie and absolutely nothing would change. The Casino Planet side mission results in literally nothing for the rebellion, and even the heroic character arc that's hinted at for Finn of Imperial Stormtrooper turned rebel who's going to sacrifice his life and save the rebellion. That plotline is completely squandered by having Rose save his life for some stupid reason, thereby killing hundreds of rebels and jeopardizing the entire rebellion. It annoys me to no end. Secondly, half of the conflict of this story boils down to Vice Admiral Holdo just being secretive about her plan for no reason. Both the casino planet and the tension that results in a mutiny is manufactured out of nowhere simply because she's a bad leader and doesn't tell anyone what her plan is. It's absolutely infuriating to watch. The greatest sin of the script, however, is that it fails to stick to its assertions. A major theme of the entire story is to let the past die, and it spends much of its time disassembling the tropes, ideas, and cliches of the franchise. This is actually an incredible idea, and one that I think could have worked really well to cement this film as one of the best. When I see praise for this film online, it's often for this very concept, and is the reason why many think it is the best in the Star Wars franchise. However, it falls short in even that, as the very moment it is forced to commit to its assertions during the final confrontation between Rey and Kylo, it goes running back to the tropes it seeks to defy. It dashes like a scared child back to the comfort of Jedi versus Sith, good versus evil, completely denying the gray area it just spent 2 hours trying to convince us existed. Star Wars Episode 8 is the perfect example of how poor writing absolutely ruins what could be an otherwise great movie. But I think that's also kind of my whole point with this video and why I think film is one of the greatest art forms currently available to us. Because with books, the entirety of the value of the book is in its writing. If the writing is bad, there can't really be other redeeming qualities to it. With a painting, it's purely visual. While a painting can convey emotion and story through suggestion, it's often in subtext or up to interpretation and lacks any auditory component. Music completely lacks any form of visual art. A great film must marry a great book, album, and a collection of thousands of paintings together into one cohesive whole in order to succeed. The key word being cohesive. Each one has to complement the other in order to serve the whole piece, and that's really hard to do. Thanks for watching my first video. If you enjoyed it, leave me a like to help push this video to more people on YouTube. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments about some of the opinions I shared here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.